Oh, welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. NHL Draft Day has arrived. It's here. Abracadabra. I want to reach out and grab the future and figure out what's going to happen with your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers tonight. What are they going to do? Well, I got news for you. Although I think I've already kind of given all of you the rundown before, but just in case some of you are new to the show, usually I'd be going down and doing a draft show tonight with my colleagues, with my confidants over at Snow the Goalie. We had a falling out. I am no longer with Snow the Goalie, so I will not be at the draft show tonight, but I do encourage you to still go out and support Anthony and Bundy and intern Andrew and video guy Amadeo. But I will no longer be with... So, I'm just kidding. I won't be there tonight. There is no falling out. I'm between work trips. I couldn't make it work this time. So, it's a joke. Everybody take a big, deep breath. Nick Abe, take a deep breath. It's okay. It's not true. There is no falling out. I am still with Snow the Goalie. I'm just joking. Everything's great. I just couldn't make it work. I'm between work trips. I'm leaving again for Miami on Monday. So, it's fine. Everything's great. I'll be back with those guys soon. But they're doing the draft show tonight down in Atlantic City at the Hard Rock Casino. And they're going to be on the other side of the wall, right? Just like we were last year at the War Room. I believe, let me see, hold on. I'll pull this up real quick because I do think it's important that we do get our facts straight around here about who's going to be on the show. It is a stacked, and I mean an absolutely stacked lineup. Let's go over to it real quick. Here's who Ant and Bundy and intern Andrew and video guy Amadeo are going to have at their disposal tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, listen, I'm not telling you that you shouldn't watch or listen to any other show, but if you have this, why would you do anything else? So they're going to have, is it Joakim Grunberg, who's a scout for the Flyers. They're going to have Porter Martone, Jack Nesbitt, Tim Saunders, Todd Fedoruk, Jim Jackson, Rick Tocchet. They'll also have whoever the Flyers end up drafting at the 21st overall pick. Whoever that ends up being. Now, if they trade back, well, then it won't be the 21st overall pick. It'll be whatever they get. If they move up, which I don't think will happen, but if they move up, then it won't be the 21st overall pick. It'll be whatever they end up getting. But that's a pretty damn good lineup. I will note a year ago, we had both Porter Martone and Jack Nesbitt on via sort of Zoom, right? Via StreamYard or whatever, on a cell phone. Where we got to kind of enjoy that moment with them right after they both got drafted. So I believe both of those guys are going to be in person sitting down with Ant and Bundy tonight. So make sure you go out of your way if you haven't already done so. Set some time aside. That show is going to start at 6:45 tonight. 6:45, and it's going to go until I think about 10 o'clock. They're going to go through the end of the first round, or certainly at least through when the Flyers make their pick. But that is the lineup for tonight. It is a star-studded affair. I hope Anthony has a visor like that. I hope he has the old school, poker, blackjack dealer, see-through green visor. That would be awesome. I hope he wears it. Bundy's just going to be a stud. So go make sure that you watch the show tonight. I don't know if we're going to do anything totally insane. I don't know if Amadeo's going to go walk around with a phone and take some shots of the crowd down on the casino floor. I think if he tries to do that, the casino security will throw him to the ground and threaten him. I don't think you're supposed to take video of the casino floor. Maybe if he goes to one of the restaurants or whatever, or one of the bars where I think they're doing a watch party or something, he'd be okay. But it should be a lot of fun tonight. So if you haven't already made plans, make sure you tune in. That'll be over on YouTube, Facebook, and X of the Snow the Goalie accounts. I think it'll also be streaming on mine. I won't be there, but it'll be streaming on my account. It'll be streaming on Ant's and on Bundy's. We've got you covered across the board. It should be a really great night. It should be a fantastic show. I wish I could be there. I just don't have a way to make it work tonight. So good job to those guys. They're going to crush it tonight. NHL Draft is tonight. We'll talk about that a little bit. And we also have to get into some of what's happening in the NHL as a whole. Most notably, the Jason Robertson of it all, which is some insane stuff. I want to dive into a whole bunch of things about what could happen tonight with the Flyers, without the Flyers. We'll get there. We also have to have a very serious conversation about, Mr. Elite, Bryce Harper, who hits a go-ahead home run against the Nats. The Phillies have now won 3 straight games. I think the official stat is they're the first team in history with 2 outs in the 9th inning to hit go-ahead home runs and win games. Absolutely insane. Nationals fans absolutely devastated. Bryce Harper made a certain gesture, and he claims it was clean. We will do forensic investigative work on whether or not what he said he did aligns with what he actually did. Oh, and by the way, Mauricio Pochettino, the story is out there today that the U.S. men's national team, the U.S. Soccer Federation, has offered him an extension of 4 years, said he could also lead the team in the 2030 World Cup. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. The U.S. lost last night in a, I don't know if I'd call it a heartbreaker, but in a game that they should have won, a game that they fell behind. Well, they got out to a 1-0 lead. Then they dropped 2 goals in a row. They have one that gets called back on an offside. And then they do manage to level the game. And then in the, the 98th minute, they added a little bit of extra time because Austin Trusty got hurt his ankle, rolled his ankle. And at the death, Turkey, which I will not call Turkia, Turkey, like the bird, like the thing we roast, they end up running away with a 3-2 win, acting as if they had won the World Cup. They got eliminated. Like they're eliminated, but, let them have their fun while they can. So, we'll get into all that and more. You guys can hit me up. Let me know in the comments section how you're feeling about things. Speaking of the comments section, I didn't have it on the screen. There it is. We'll dive into as much as we possibly can here. It is a fantastic Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. And again, don't forget, 6:45 tonight, the Snow the Goalie crew will have you late into the night. It's like 6:45 to 10 o'clock at the Hard Rock Casino in Atlantic City. On the other side of the wall in the War Room, will Danny Briere have his big huevos move? Does he have one ready to go? Will Rick Tocchet be on the show telling you about how he's going to utilize Jason Robertson, Zach Werenski, or no one at all? We'll find out. We'll find out tonight. All right, I'm going to go out to the comments, and then we're going to dive into everything that's happening out there in the sports world on this fantastic Friday. Programming note, don't forget, Monday I will be on my way to Miami when the show would typically air. If I can find decent Wi-Fi in Miami, and let's be honest, I won't, there would be a live show. I'm going to pre-record a show that'll go up on Monday, so don't worry. And I think Wednesday will end up being a live show. I'm coming back at some point on Wednesday from Miami. I don't remember what time, but I will try. I will do my darndest. So, and then I don't think I have to travel for a bit for work, which is going to be lovely. I look forward to being home for a bit. That would be swell, unless they decide to send me somewhere cool, in which case I will go somewhere cool. All right. Ryan Schiffler, 7822, says, quiet on the Flyers front. The longer time goes on, I believe Risto remains a Flyer. I don't. I think Risto is as good as gone. I think that if you have found yourself madly in love with the idea of Rasmus Ristolainen and you are going to be devastated if he's dealt, I think it's time to start coming to grips with the fact that he will not be on this team next year. The only conceivable way, in my mind, that Rasmus Ristolainen is back on the Flyers to start the season is if they legitimately got no offer of any kind of value. And I mean like an all-time offensively low set of offers. I don't even know if that looks like at this point. But we kind of did the exercise on the show earlier this week. Realistically, there aren't that many spots available on this roster when it comes to like defensemen being on this team. There aren't that many spots that you're going to like have available to you, but you need to make moves. Like, for example, David Jiricek is on a one-way deal. They very clearly expect him to be on this roster. Now, you can make the case, well, couldn't he theoretically take the spot of like an Emil Andre? In theory, he could. I still think that they want to get this power play better. And if they're going to get the power play better, it's not going to happen with Risto. I've long been on this, this hope, right? This little bit of fantasy land that John Carlson might, revel in the opportunity to stick it to the Caps and join the Flyers in the Metropolitan Division and get paid boku bucks for a couple of years. I would vastly overpay John Carlson. Like, if I were the Flyers, I'd be like, hell yeah. John Carlson, you want what's that? Was that $10 million a year? $11 million a year for 2 years? Sure, have it. You want 12 and a half? All right, maybe that's a little bit too much. Fix the power play. If you were to get somebody who can help fix the power play, I expect Risto would be gone. I don't see them re-signing Rasmus Ristolainen after this year. I think that they are going to try to cash in. And if you believe the national media pundits, they do make it sound as though there are multiple teams circling Risto. Now, if you're going to get a deal done, it's better to do it between now and the end of the first round. Could the Flyers ultimately get that first-round pick they've been coveting for so long? Maybe. I do still think that it ultimately comes down to whether or not the Flyers are willing to accept a pick in this draft, which it seems like everybody's running away from, or do they try to force the issue to get a pick in, say, 2027, when they think maybe things could be a little bit better, a little bit more open? Maybe the draft is a little bit stronger. This draft has been weird, right? Because we talked about that Bo Byram trade, which, by the way, I think continues to just age incredibly poorly, right? The only thing that has come out so far that's made me say, all right, I understand conceptually why Chicago made the deal is that apparently Connor Bedard was very much involved in that trade. Connor Bedard apparently was very much in on this idea of going out and getting Bo Byram. So your franchise player wanted him. Okay. But you had to deal way more than you should have to get Byram. And then the report came out yesterday that Byram is going to wait until the Quinn Hughes deal has been settled before he even enters negotiations. Are you on crack? Like, I'm sorry. Even if you're the biggest Bo Byram fan in the world, he isn't even remotely in the league of Quinn Hughes. This notion that like, oh, I'm going to wait to see like how Quinn Hughes sets the market. And then what? Like if Quinn Hughes were to re-sign with Minnesota, which I'm still not convinced he will. If Quinn Hughes goes and takes, let's say he gets like a $16 million a year offer, 15, 14, whatever it is, and he sets the market for defensemen. Let's say he gets $14 million. Quinn Hughes. Is he worth 14? He is. Is he worth 16? He might be the best defenseman in the league. You could make an argument if you're not that big of a fan of Quinn Hughes, he falls no further than the top three. I would say that just on market value and the way that the cap's going up, $16 million a year, I would pay that. If I'm trying to make my team a cup contender, sure. So let's say Quinn Hughes gets $16 million. What does Bo Byram think he's going to get? Is Bo Byram insane enough to think he's going to get more? Does Bo Byram think that he's going to somehow be in that same $16 million range? If Quinn Hughes gets 16, does Bo Byram think he should get 13 and a half, 12? Like, what number does he think he's going to get? What number does his camp think they're going to get? And then, furthermore, are they on crack? Like, there is no way on this earth that he should look at himself as being even in the same category as Quinn Hughes. So this idea of like, oh, we're going to wait and see. Yeah, good luck with that. But if you're Chicago, you've traded this bevy of assets. You traded the 4th overall pick for this guy. You've already paid a boatload. He still doesn't have a contract in place. You would assume that he probably will sign. You would hope, right? But we're going to base it off of what Quinn Hughes gets? Goodness gracious. Good God. All right. Let's see. Ryan says Ersson to Ottawa. Did that happen? Did the Leafs already trade Sam Ersson? No way. They didn't do that, did they? Oh my God, they did! It just happened. Sam Ersson traded from Toronto to Ottawa. Ladies and gentlemen, with breaking news. That's a really bad breaking news thing. So here you go. Wow. Talk about a big move. Hey, you cannot argue. You can't argue that this team is all in. Ottawa, baby. Wow. Look at this. Trade alert. The Sens have acquired goaltender Samuel Ersson from Toronto in exchange for a 5th-round pick in the 2027 NHL Draft. Sam Ersson. I'll tell you what. He thought he was going to be the backstop for Auston Matthews and for a Maple Leafs team that very clearly is going all in on it. You know, after that Radish deal, yeah, they're all in. But they won't have the services of Samuel Ersson, who they are now sending to Ottawa. Wow. Brady Tkachuk is gone. Sam Ersson in. I mean, if we're just evaluating pure talent for talent, regardless of position, you could make an argument now that Ottawa is in a better position with Sam Ersson than they were with Brady Tkachuk. If the goal is to lose. If the goal is to lose, then they're in a much better spot. Wow. How about that? MJ Brunos has put Sam Ersson on the Mount Rushmore of great Maple Leafs netminders. Wild. Wild, wild, wild. Amy's here, says happy Friday. Happy Friday. Or is that Dee Dee? Wait a second. I've lost names. I think it's Dee Dee. Is that Dee Dee Skinner? I think it's Dee Dee. I'm not sure. Now I'm questioning a lot. Why did we get rid of regular names and now it's just only gone to handles? What happened? What happened with StreamYard and the YouTube? Anyway. Ryan Schiffler with a very interesting point. I might actually make this a poll. I'm going to go out of my way to create a poll on this show, just for the sake of argument. Ryan asks, am I crazy to say I am fine with the Flyers not doing anything this offseason? That is quite the question. I'm going to be very interested to see what the people say in the chat. Hold on. I'm going to add this. Where's my producer? There is none. All right, so let's just throw it out. Are you fine if the Flyers don't make a big move this offseason? There we go. There's the poll. Go over to YouTube on the Russ Joy Show YouTube channel, and you can vote. Are you fine if the Flyers don't make a big move this offseason? We'll check back in on that poll in a little bit. Can I be honest with you, Ryan? I think we're in a really weird spot because you're watching other teams in the Eastern Conference make moves. You're watching Washington make moves. And I feel like the only thing that could really move the needle here, probably, well, there are two. Right now, the Rangers are one of two teams that are apparently in active negotiations trying to pry Mason McTavish away from Anaheim. If the Rangers make that move, I don't think that changes the calculus on the Metropolitan Division. I don't think it changes the calculus on the Eastern Conference. I don't think necessarily that makes Danny Briere say, oh, now I need to make a move. But if they do that, Washington continues to add, and then Pittsburgh. See, Pittsburgh is where I think a lot of this kind of hinges. Like, if you watch New York, Washington, and Pittsburgh all make additions to their team, then I think it's a conversation point. I don't think that this front office is going to just get involved in a really stupid deal for the sake of making a stupid deal. I know that everybody's worried about Nurse and about there being a trade with Edmonton. If Edmonton's going to retain salary, like a significant bit of salary, fine. If Edmonton's not going to retain salary, but they want to send you like a first-round pick, I still don't like that salary. It's still way too much for Nurse, but like, would I take a future asset? I might. I don't think Edmonton's going to be bad, but I'd probably take the asset. I have seen people kind of throwing out the idea, why don't the Flyers just go after Trouba and not have to make the kind of deal that they would have to make for Nurse and pay that money? So we'll see. Let's see. Chris Freed is here. Says 1 million recorded steps since March 1st, 2016. That's 46,272 miles. Good job, Chris. That's a lot of steps. Greg Bondarenko says afternoon. Hello, Greg. Thanks for being here. Let's see. Where are we at? I see Ford has been dropping his same comments many times about the Phillies. We'll get there in a little bit. Hopefully Ford will stop spamming the comment section. Russ, if I don't spam it, you don't see it. I do see it. Let's see. Bondarenko's going to be watching the Snow the Goalie show tonight. It's his best way to spend a Friday night. Hockey Purgatory with an interesting idea. Give up everything for Werenski. So we can play this one out if you want. I'm fine with playing some of this out, okay? I've got a potential problem, right? If you want to go all in on Werenski, I think you're going to have to gut a part of the team that you don't want to gut. Would it solve your number one defenseman issue? It would. Do I think it would be advantageous to the Flyers to make that kind of a move? I don't. I actually think that you run the risk of hurting your team if you gut it specifically just to get Werenski. I don't think that he totally aligns with what you should be looking for at this point. If you had another star, if you had a star forward, a number one center already locked down, I'd say, hell yeah, go after Zach Werenski. If you think that getting Werenski could then all of a sudden make Austin Matthews look at your team and say, oh yeah, now I'm interested in being a Flyer, very different scenario. But he's 28 years old. He turns 29 in July. Age-wise, it doesn't align. Talent-wise, he'd obviously become the best defenseman on this team. Do I think that it would be totally worth it? Probably not. It's also, I guess, kind of worth noting that, like, he's a free agent in 2 years. So you're bringing in a guy potentially that would only play for your team for 2 years. Now, again, I've kind of played out the scenario in the past about, all right, what happens if you were to convince a Quinn Hughes, if he doesn't re-sign in Minnesota, what if you could convince a Quinn Hughes when his contract is up to come to Philadelphia? Does that change the calculus on players waiving a no-move clause to come to Philly? I think it would. If Zach Werenski's here, it probably makes that case a little bit more compelling and a little bit more interesting. if you know in your heart of hearts that your goal is to go out and try to get a guy like an Austin Matthews, maybe having Werenski here would help. I still don't think it makes sense. Again, if it were me, and I've been pretty consistent about this, if it were me, the thing I would be pushing for right now is probably, right? I would probably still look at doing an offer sheet. Now, I've seen a lot of people throwing this idea that I've had out there for a while about like a Leo Carlsson or an Adam Fantilli trying to front load the contract, poison pill. I think the Ducks have like 6 free agents they need to sign. If you think that the Ducks wouldn't try to move heaven and earth to match on Leo Carlsson, I think you're out of your mind. I don't see a scenario where Anaheim doesn't match it. I've seen people, and this is the downside when you go on some of the Flyers Facebook groups, but I've seen people in recent days say, why don't the Flyers try to offer sheet Connor Bedard, front load the contract, and poison pill Chicago? Because one, that's stupid, right? It won't work. It's an exercise in futility. Bedard, we've heard nothing about Bedard not wanting to be in Chicago. He actively pushed their front office to go get Bo Byram. He very much seems committed to that city. And also, you don't think Chicago would do everything in their power to match that contract? Are you out of your mind? So it comes down to Carlson and Fantilli again. I still think that in both cases, their teams match. Would I still do it? I would. I think at this point, you've kind of already used up the relationship that you have with Anaheim. I think that they got the better, right? For however you want to evaluate it. They got Cutter Gauthier. They got their 40-goal scorer. You got back an okay return. Jamie Drysdale's been a better overall defenseman than we expected him to be. I don't think it really has moved the needle in a huge way. If you want to look at the Ryan Poehling for Trevor Zegras trade, I think the Flyers very clearly got the better of that deal. You put the two together. However you want to look at it, I think you've probably done about as much trading as there is to do with Anaheim. So would I be worried about pissing off their front office with an offer sheet for Leo Carlsson? I would not. Would I be worried about pissing off a fellow team in the Metropolitan Division in Columbus by offer sheeting Fantilli? No, I wouldn't be. The real thing that I continue to come back to, you have this Toronto pick, which to me is still a massively valuable asset, potentially for Toronto, but you'd have to convince Matthews to come here. Or you try your damnedest to send Risto somewhere. You hope that there is a bidding war and that you are somehow able to get a first-round pick in some draft in the next 2 or 3 years. All right, well, now you've got backfill. You've got the Toronto pick. You then have a pick from Risto. And if you lose 4 first-round picks because you offer $20 million or whatever a year to try to get Leo Carlsson or Adam Fantilli, well, then guess what? You've got your number one center. You've got somebody that your wings can absolutely develop with, build off of, take to the next level. And oh, by the way, you have 2 of the 4 picks replaced with other teams' picks. Is it ideal? No. Is it better than gutting your team to go after a Zach Werenski or gutting your team to go after an Austin Matthews? I would still argue that it is. Even if it doesn't work out, it's still worth trying to do that. Now, that leads me to Jason Robertson, which is pretty freaking wild. Okay? The Jason Robertson of it all is absolutely insane. So Jason Robertson plays for Dallas. Dallas for over a year has not made it look like or sound in any way Dallas is going to re-sign Jason Robertson. They've been kind of playing this game of chicken for over a year. I still don't know why he's a 40-goal scorer. Seems insane to me that Dallas isn't prioritizing it, but whatever. It's not my team, right? Not my team. I don't make those decisions. I just think it's insane. So the word comes out that there are obviously a ton of teams that are interested in Jason Robertson. There also are a lot of teams that are aware of the fact that 40-plus goal scorers don't grow on trees. And if you have one or the ability to acquire one, you will move assets, and then you will also be willing to pay that guy market value, which at this point is probably somewhere in that $14 million range. Because if you remember, Kirill Kaprizov last year got himself a massive payday out of Minnesota, and he set the new market where he's getting an AAV of $17 million. So if you're Jason Robertson, you're probably looking at the Kaprizov deal saying, well, then I should get $17 million. I'm a 40-goal scorer. I could do that. I helped one of the best teams in the Western Conference, which then makes it one of the best teams in the NHL. I helped that team find a lot of success. I deserve close to, or maybe even more. Maybe he's sold in his own mind that he should make more than $17 million. So the Seattle Kraken apparently came a knocking, right? The Kraken apparently put out a gigantic offer because, remember, he's a restricted free agent. We are not yet at the point where you could just go willy-nilly and make an offer sheet, right? We're still at the point where you can try to negotiate for those exclusive negotiating rights for the player. And what's wild about it is that Robertson, apparently his agent or whatever, met with Seattle, had a conversation. Seattle was willing to give up their pick in this draft. Seattle was willing to give up a lottery pick in this draft just to have the opportunity to negotiate with Jason Robertson and figure out what they could accomplish. Can they come to a number and a contract that makes sense? Seattle was that desperate to try to get Jason Robertson that they were about to move their first-round pick in this draft, the number 7 overall pick, just to talk to Robertson. And apparently, they offered him a gargantuan contract. Because they would be getting his exclusive negotiating rights, they could theoretically offer him an 8-year deal. And they offered him $15 million a year. 15. Now remember, Kaprizov, 17. 8-year deal, $15 million AAV. Robertson said no. So in the mind of Seattle, they thought they were going to get the guy. They were willing to part with this top 10 pick. Dallas is probably thrilled, right? Dallas is looking at it going, shit, man, like we're one of the best teams in hockey. We have the opportunity to get this pick for a guy that we're not going to re-sign. And apparently Jason Robertson said no. It's also come out that he said no to St. Louis, which I guess kind of leads us to a very basic question. Shouldn't we at some point have an idea of where Jason Robertson wants to go? Now, there have been a few different camps that have been sort of floated out there. There are a few teams that he's apparently maybe indicated that he would be willing to go to. And surprise, surprise, it seems like it's many of the ones that you would typically expect it to be. But I'm just kind of beside myself. $15 million a year offer, 8 years. Now, the response on Twitter is about what you would expect it to be, right? The expectation is that Robertson's going to want to go to one of those teams. Could it be a Vegas? Could it be a Carolina? Could it be the Panthers, the Lightning, whoever? One of those typical teams. Could he maybe try to force his way to Minnesota? Here's an interesting idea. Like if you're Detroit and you have Dylan Larkin and Dylan Larkin wants out, what if Dylan Larkin wants to go play in Dallas? What if he's open to it? Would you do a 1-for-1 swap? I mean, you're going to have to pay beaucoup bucks to Jason Robertson, but if Robertson is fine going to Detroit and Larkin is fine going to Dallas, well, that could be your 1-for-1 swap, but then you got a massive deal you're going to also have to hand out to Robertson. Do we have any indications that Detroit's the way to go? No. The thing that's really interesting is that, when you think about the Seattle offer, I was like, man, like you kind of need to know like what Robertson's actually thinking. People are like, well, do you really want to go live in Seattle? I don't know. I've never been to Seattle. I've heard good things and I've heard bad things. I've heard the coffee's okay. I hear it rains a lot. I don't know. Never been to Seattle. But there's apparently a 9.9% wealth tax on anybody who makes income over $1 million. I could understand why you wouldn't want almost 10% of your money every year getting taken away by the government. I could understand if you're in the case of a Jason Robertson where you say, oh, $15 million a year. Well, it's really not $15 million a year because if I go there, you're going to dock me like $1.5 million a year. I can understand not being thrilled with that. But it's pretty wild. It's a very interesting place that we find ourselves in. And I've seen a lot of people today throwing out a lot of stuff about how, this is a failure, that the Flyers are not getting mentioned in any of these rumors. Why aren't the Flyers moving heaven and earth to try to get Jason Robertson? Again, do we think that if you're Jason Robertson, you want to go to Philadelphia? I have no idea. I would not think at this point that Philly has done a good enough job of making the team enticing enough for these guys. You can make an argument that while the team tried to set a very low bar in terms of saying, like, we are trying to rebuild and we're building this the right way, and then they overperform, they make the playoffs, and it's like, oh, this is great, but we're not going to make any knee-jerk reactions. While they did all that, I would say that they probably raised fan expectation a bit when they hired Rick Tocchet and said players want to play for Rick Tocchet. That maybe is where they kind of erred in their ways, because if you'd said, listen, players love playing for Rick Tocchet, maybe don't make it then sound like guys would maybe waive their no moves or guys would maybe want to come here in free agency just because Rick Tocchet's here. I think that there's been this it's maybe a little bit of inconsistent messaging, and it's led to why so many Flyers fans are upset right now. I will note, though, based on the price of some of these guys that have been moved, I'm actually kind of happy the Flyers haven't gotten involved. Again, like we talked about the Bo Byram thing, it's a stupid price. Under no circumstances should you pay that. If Jason Robertson's going to want 15, 16, 17, maybe more, $1 million a year, I would still make the argument that if you're the Flyers, I could probably make sense of it. If you don't have to trade a Martone or a Michkov, I think I brought this up with Colby Cohen earlier this week, but do you go to Travis Konechny? Say you're Dallas and you don't want to have a significant dip in overall talent on your roster. And you go to Travis Konechny and say, listen, we're looking at a deal with Dallas. How do you feel about going to the Stars? Konechny, as a competitor, should be totally open to the idea of going to play for Dallas, having a chance to compete in the Western Conference and win a Stanley Cup. From the hockey perspective, it makes sense. Do you want to move your young family down to Texas? I don't know, right? And if you're the Stars and you're trying to clear up some cap space and you're not willing to pay a 40-goal scorer, do you really want to then go pay $8.75 for Travis Konechny? I don't know if you do. I think in order for you to kind of swing here, swing for the fences and play with the big boys, the Flyers are going to have to consider making a move that's going to hurt. I just don't think that they are willing to move Martone or Michkov. And if that's the case, who are you talking about moving? We've talked about Risto. You talk about Owen Tippett. They very much don't want to trade Tyson Forster, so there's another name. Barkey and Bump aren't worth a lot right now. Noah Cates isn't particularly worth a lot. I don't see them doing a one-for-one hockey trade to move Sean Couturier's number. So if you're not going to move things that teams actually want, I don't know how you can participate in the current trade environment. And that's the issue. That to me is where I could see the Flyers not making much of a move. There's part of me that thinks that in their spirit, in their soul, this front office wants to make a splash. They gained so much attention this past season by overperforming expectations, by taking down the Penguins in the first round. And yeah, they eventually lost in a sweep to the eventual Stanley Cup champion Carolina Hurricanes. There's part of me that thinks they want to keep some headlines. They want to have somebody that they could build marketing campaigns around. If you get a Jason Robertson, he's the face of your franchise. If you go out and you get an Austin Matthews or a Zach Werenski, guess what? They're a face of your franchise. That's it, right? Then you have your guy. Then you have your piece of the puzzle that you can hopefully use to entice other free agents or guys with a no-move clause. As it stands right now, I don't see it happening. I do not see them being able to convince legitimate stud players to waive that no move or to come here. I mean, free agency is really not a thing right now. I just don't see them being able to say, hey, we have Rick Tocchet, who you love playing for. You get to play in front of this rabid fan base. I don't think that sells it enough. You need one domino to fall. You need to get that one big piece, and then I think everything else falls into place, which is why I'm thinking you're probably looking at mid-season move or next offseason is when you get that big splash. If the Flyers can somehow turn a deal out of trading a lot of picks, including that Toronto pick, and get themselves a guy that could be viewed as an actual stud of some sort, then I think they'll do it. Otherwise, I don't see it. I don't see it at all. I see Nick Abe, though, saying, oh shit, breaking news. I don't know what the breaking news is. So, I don't know. I don't know what the breaking news is. So, I'll take a look when we get there. Sounds like the Ducks are engaged in trade talks involving Olin Zellweger. All right. So, he started following nobody and unfollowed 6 people. He unfollowed Jack Eichel and Clayton Keller and unfollowed Austin Matthews. All right, I don't totally understand what's going on there. All right, that's interesting. Sinister says, I would trade Tippett for a top 10 pick. Yeah, everybody would. Well, maybe not everybody. I certainly would. MJ Bruno says, Ray Zellweger? Joe Papel says, Russ, so you seem to be leading to we're still years away and probably no playoffs. No, I think they can make the playoffs again. Even if some of these other teams in their division add, I don't view Columbus as a threat. I don't think Columbus is going to get better. And if they trade Werenski, they're going to be significantly worse. I don't think that Washington's acquisitions have put them in like a total different tier. If Detroit moves Larkin and doesn't get back a player of similar quality, then I think Detroit as an Eastern Conference team probably doesn't have the same oomph. Jay Grabby had to ask the question. Giroux is an unrestricted free agent. Does Danny give his friend a call? Maybe he gives him a call. Shouldn't bring him in. It would be a disaster. That would not be a good idea. Would not be a good idea. And it doesn't mean you have to take my word for it. Take John Tortorella's word for it. If you remember, when Torts came in, he was all about cleaning up that locker room, cleaning up the prior regime's culture. Methinks that might involve the captain, the guy who was here for a long time. You cannot go back to the past. You should not go blast from the past. Would Claude Giroux be, in theory, an upgrade to this roster? Potentially. If he could actually play center for you, yeah, he would represent an upgrade. Would I want to bring him back in? No. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. All right, let's see. Here you go. Devil's Advocate. Giroux comes back with his high face-off percentage and center left-wing versatility. Can't be a negative, can it? It can be if you are worried about whether or not the culture with Giroux as captain was a problem. And again, John Tortorella, when he got here, seemed to think that the culture that had been instilled in a lot of these guys was a problem. So I don't see it. I think it also just totally changes the dynamic of that locker room in a way that, like, they were so close-knit last year, I would not go that route. Timpo says, Russ, the breaking news is Briere is taking a nap. Good for him. Well, he's going to need his energy for later, so hopefully he's got a nice, fuzzy, warm blanket, maybe a cup of Tim Hortons or something, ready to go for later. See, I'm trying to figure out the right way to say this because I know that there's the possibility that if I say something the right way, I'm going to have somebody tell me that I'm a shill. And I don't want to be called a shill because I'm not a shill. But, I could make a case that it's not the worst thing in the world if the Flyers don't get involved in what's going on the trade market. I could honestly make a case right now that it would be stupid and Briere would be derelict in his duties as the GM of this team to go out and make a stupid trade that makes no sense for this organization. A massive overpay that just should not happen. If I were Danny Briere, my last thing that I would want to do is get myself involved in a bidding war for a player that isn't going to fundamentally move things forward in a big way. I would stay out of it. And if that means that you're running it back to some extent, but with a better backup goalie, I still think this team could be a playoff team. I still expect guys like Martone, Michkov, Bump, Barkey, Grabenkin when he's back. I expect all those guys to take another step. I expect that this defensive core is going to get better. I expect Jamie Drysdale will be better next year. I expect that Travis Sanheim will be as good or even better next year. I expect that, I don't know about Cam York, but maybe he'll be better. I don't know. Maybe it's not a bad thing if the Flyers run it back. I'm not a shill. Who did that? I'm merely suggesting that if the Flyers run it back with most of what they had last year, with Jiricek in for Ristolainen with an asset that came back, if they do manage to somehow add another forward, even if it's not a top 6 guy, it's not the worst thing in the world. Okay, but again, it doesn't necessarily make me a shill if I'm being honest about things. Why would you gut your team for somebody who's not going to make a tangible difference in whether or not you're a cup contender? That would be silly. Good on Danny Briere for not making a stupid move. Yeah, they got to make a move, don't they? They have to. They have to make a move. Yes. No. All right, let's go over to the comments here. Man, the comment section is going today. We got people roaring along. All right. Timpo says, sure, Russ, sell Risto, cash in on Tippett in a seller's market. I agree. Listen, people were enamored with Tippett. I think it's lovely. I gave him his credit down the stretch last year. He was really important for this team. He gave this lineup something they don't typically have. If you could sell high on Owen Tippett, I'm selling high. If you can get a team to give you a future first and another asset back, I'm all in. By all means. If you could do a hockey trade, like if you could trade Tippett for a potentially higher upside defenseman, cool. I make that move. If you tell me that like Tippett's got to be one of the guys involved in a Werenski trade, all right. You want to tell me that Tippett's got to be part of a deal for Jason Robertson? Hell yeah, absolutely. What I want to see, here's what I would like to see. I want the report. The Flyers tried to negotiate with Jason Robertson. Robertson is looking at 3 other teams. They include Vegas, Florida, whoever the hell else. Because it does a few things. One, it does outline for you that guys like that with a no move aren't willing to waive it for Philly yet. You still have to get better. The other thing is, I just want to see that the Flyers are trying. I think that that's what the fans ultimately want to see, is that you're at least in those negotiations. You're at least on that trade market saying, we will give up assets to get this guy and bring him in. That's why I think it's going to be critical when the RFA timeline begins that we find out the Flyers have made a push for Leo Carlsson or Adam Fantilli. I think that's when it's going to really matter. You've got to see that they were willing to try to make a big huevos move. Otherwise, then I get the frustration. Nick Abe says, Tippett is 28 this year, never had a 30-goal season. Correct. Joe Papel asks, is Florida losing Bobrovsky to free agency? I don't think so, but it is interesting. His name came up a few times that teams were kind of checking in on Bobrovsky. And wasn't it Carolina that was trying to get him at the trade deadline as well? And it didn't happen. I think Carolina is going to make a big swing. Carolina, the idea is out there that they've tried to make a move for Hellebuck and that they might involve Nikishin in that deal. We saw that like his name was being floated out there in potential trades. Man, that'd be a wild one. Sending a young defenseman to Winnipeg as part of a package to bring back Hellebuck. I mean, the one thing that Carolina, I thought, kind of struggled with was goaltending. I think anytime you have to make that switch in the Stanley Cup final, it's a huge gamble. Great on Bussy. Would I build my next 5-year plan around Bussy being the netminder? No. If you get Hellebuck, well, all of a sudden, it feels like that window is like jammed wide open. Let's see. What's this? Tax goes, did I screw up and put on the Kurtz podcast? Shill. Not a shill. You know what? I actually think that opinion is straight up ass. So that's where we're at. All right. Let me keep going over here. Brandon Ficara says, I think they need to add a top 6 center. We have chips to trade, and it doesn't have to be a huge player, just a Zegras type move. This is where I would be interested. If Ottawa is open to moving a Pinto or a Cousins, I'd be more in on Cousins than Pinto. If there's a trade to make with Ottawa, that's where I'd go. I always like the idea of going after a dude who's like a 2C who you think can maybe develop into being a 1C, or if he's got legit enough wings, can kind of play that 1C role for you. I don't think they have to gut the team to go after a guy like Matthews. I think if you add a legitimate like top 2 center with some upside, that's the way that I would go. AJ says, welcome to the Shill Joy Show. I'm Shill Joy, but you knew that already. Yes. Let's see. I'm trying to jump around. I missed some comments up here earlier. Let me see if there's anything else. Schiffler says, Flyers won't be trading Risto unless they have a backup plan to replace him, which means he is staying. I think he's gone. I'd be shocked if... I think that they could look at... I honestly think they will look at Jiricek as a big body guy. He doesn't play very physically, which is the problem. But like they could maybe make the case that's your swap. Or if they could somehow convince a Carlson to come here, well, then he's getting those top minutes that Risto could have gotten. We'll see. K-Dub says Robertson is one of the top 10 goal scorers in the last 5 years or so. He's definitely got the leverage to ask for a huge contract or wait till next summer as a UFA. I agree. Which maybe Dallas doesn't end up moving him. I don't know. We'll see. Joseph DeAngelis says, I'm sure the Flyers would love to add Larkin. I believe he would be a great fit, but he doesn't want to come here. There's nothing we can do. That is likely true as well. All right, let me see now. Holy smokes, there's been a lot of stuff. Here you go. Buffalo got Zellweger for the 45th pick and Wahlberg. Okay. Ford has put this comment up about 10 times, and I don't care. All right, so we'll keep going. Fakara says that Jiricek and Bonk are going to be the replacements. I don't think they're going to roll with two super young, inexperienced guys, but you never know. All right. WHA's here. Noting the Airson trade to Ottawa as well. All right. I think I'm good to move off of this for now. But Shooby-Doo, since we're in agreement, I'll bring this up. Says, I prefer Cousins over Pinto as well. Both good players to be sure, but Cousins has the scoring upside I'd rather have in a top 6 role. That's where I'm at. All right. We'll see what happens tonight with the NHL Draft. We'll see what happens with your team, your town, and Philadelphia Flyers. Go tune into the Snow the Goalie show from 6:45 until 10 o'clock on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Ant and Bundy got you covered. Star-studded lineup. I showed it to you before. I don't think I have it pulled up anymore. I certainly could, though. Maybe I will. Just out of the kindness of my heart, I'll pull it up one more time. If you're looking for a legitimate show to check out during the draft tonight, Ant and Bundy and intern Andrew and video guy Amadeo will be on the other side of the wall from the Flyers War Room. They will have on the show tonight Rick Tocchet. How about the head coach of the team, Rick Tocchet? They'll have Jim Jackson and Tim Saunders, the voices on TV and radio. They'll have Porter Martone and Jack Nesbitt, who both got to feel the thrill of being a first-round pick last year. They'll have on a scout from the Flyers as well. It's going to be a great time. And whoever they end up drafting in the first round, they'll have that guy on as well. So, enjoy that tonight. Enjoy your hockey, okay? Okay. Let me see. What else did I want to get to? There was other stuff to get to today. We did the draft. We did that. Do I want to talk about Bryce Harper now? I guess we could. A little Bryce Harper, a little U.S. men's national team, and then we'll wrap up. All right, so in case you missed it, Bryce Harper had himself a moment. Bryce Harper's been having himself more moments than not moments of late. Bryce Harper had a moment in last night's game, 9th inning, again. Phillies go up on a big home run. Game was tied at 5. And I think if I show you this video clip, we'll be okay. I think this one will be okay because it includes a quote from young Bryce Harper. Because as you will notice in this video, Bryce Harper made a certain gesture to the fans in right field because apparently Nationals fans, well, they're giving a little F Bryce Harper treatment in the chanting out in right field. And Bryce Harper was asked about the gesture that he made. So let's go out to this first. Here's Bryce Harper.
Gestured out to right field when you're running the bases. Did you hear them chanting? And why
yeah, I mean, obviously. Yeah. Ring finger, though.
Okay.
So just make sure that.
All right, so I said we were going to do some forensic investigation here. Now, let's take a gander. Now, is that the ring finger? Is that the middle finger? Which finger does Bryce Harper have up in the air? Now, this is a split. This is a split screen, so it's going to be difficult for us to do the full-on forensic investigation. But don't worry, friends. That's not the only version of this. That's not the only clip out there. That's not the only thing that we can see. And so I'm going to take you to a much better angle of this. Hold on, let me see. There's a part. Let's see. The TV telecast cut it out, but I know that there's a piece out there somewhere. I'll let you know. There we go. I got it. So we've got 2 bird flips, all right, by Bryce Harper. Here's the first one, right? So here's Bryce Harper as he's rounding the bases. And you say to yourself, all right, how many fingers do we have now? Here's the pinky, all right? We're going very, very scientific. Here's the pinky. That appears to be the next one. So that would, in fact, be the ring finger. and then we have when he's at home plate. Now, this is the definitive angle. Now, I would argue this is probably ring finger here, although there is a little bit of a blob in this hand area. Very clear here, though, as he's crossing home plate. We have the pinky and we have the ring finger extended. Now, I have a question. I have a legitimate question here about Bryce Harper, okay? If the fans in Washington are chanting F Bryce Harper, and he hits a home run to put the Phillies up in the 9th inning, 3rd game in a row, Phillies are losing going into the 9th, or not winning going into the 9th, and you hit a home run to go up, and you gave your blood, sweat, and tears for that organization, isn't a middle finger kind of warranted? Right? Like, isn't that kind of warranted? Why are we going ring finger? Are you worried that you're going to offend the children? I mean, if you're out in right field and you see Bryce Harper gesture to you with the ring finger, right? Here we go, right? Here's the ring finger, right? So if he's gesturing, but he's way far away, and you see his, you're not gonna go, oh, this is only giving us the ring finger, and then he gets to home plate, and he's hitting you with that too. Guess what? You're not like, oh, that must be the ring finger. Like that's like the people who say like, oh, pudding pops. Oh, with the pudding pops in the, I can't say that. Bad guy. Okay. But like, you can't. Why do the gesture at all? Darn you. What are we doing? Fiddlesticks. No, Bryce, if you're going to go all in, go all in. If you're going to throw one up, throw one up. If you're going to give them the one finger salute, do it the right way. Giving them the ring finger salute. What are we doing here? Come on, man. That's not Philadelphia. Ford says Bryce is a passive-aggressive, sensitive prick. That's what he is. Wow. Is ring finger passive-aggressive? I think it might be. Like, if you go full-on middle, that's a declarative bang, bang, bang. Ring finger, though, kind of lame. Takes a lot of the edge out of it, you know? Anyway, I'm going to go to this Ford thing. Ford says, I like Tom, presumably Tom McCarthy, but when he says again, it drives me crazy. He drags the N and says N. So he says again. I've never caught on to this. I don't understand. I don't know what this is. Again? He says again instead of again. Again, nah. Is there a dot? Is there an ellipsis in between? Does he send again? Does he say again? Pause. Nah. I don't know. I've never noticed it, but it clearly has gotten under Ford's skin. Listen, here's if you want like a little bit of positivity on your team, your town, your Philadelphia Phillies, who, by the way, you can go check out Phightin Words. They dropped a new episode today. It felt like for the longest time the Phillies had no shot of catching the Braves. The Braves were out by so much in the NL East. The Phillies have gone 7-3 in their last 10. The Braves are 3-7 in their last 10. And don't look now, but you will. The Phillies are only 4 games back of the Braves. This Phillies team that had such a disastrous start to the season, where it looked like no one wanted to play for Rob Thompson, where we were hearing the constant refrains of Nick Castellanos kind of shit-talking the Phillies from San Diego, right? And then we watched Nick Castellanos get waived during a series against the Philadelphia Phillies. Like, we watched Rob Thompson get fired. Rob Thompson, who seemed like a good dude, who a lot of people spoke very highly of. They move on from him. Don Mattingly takes over. They caught fire, but it was like, can they catch enough fire for it to actually get close? Now, listen, this can always go sideways. Phillies are 7-3 in their last 10. Braves are 3-7. If you flip that around, guess what? All of a sudden, you're going to be looking at somewhere around like a 7 or 8 game gap. So, baseball, long season, fickle, all that. Through 81 games this season, the Phillies are 9 games over 500. If we're all being honest, with the way the season started, no one saw this coming. Good on the Phillies for figuring it out. And the Phillies have done this despite the fact that, like, for a good chunk of the season, they were without, at least early on in the season, they were without young Zach Wheeler. They had Andrew Painter giving them no chance. They had Taijuan Walker was starting games. I mean, come on. Come on. And yet, your team, your town, your Philadelphia Phillies, 9 games over 500. Let's just take a moment here, rejoice and be glad. They're 9 games over 500. Taijuan Walker had a 9.13 ERA for the team this season. I know it feels like a long time ago because it kind of was. 9.13 ERA for Taijuan Walker. His last game was April 22nd. Think about it. Taijuan Walker, Garbaggio, Andrew Painter, wildly underwhelming. And yet, this team has figured out a way to win games, and they showed a lot of chutzpah. They showed very big huevos in this series against the Nats, down to their final strike in multiple games. Good on them. I will also note that while this is going on, and while the Marlins are also 7-3 in their last 10 games, and they're behind the Phillies by 3 games, we also should pour one out for the Metropolitans. Pour one out for the New York Mets. 2-8 in their last 10, 34-47. They fired their manager today. They are 13 games under 500. They are done. DED, dead. It is over. If anybody at any point thought that the Mets were going to pull the nose up on this thing, the short version of it is absolutely not. Now, I say this, and I open up the possibility of a jinx, but the Mets host the Phillies in a 3-game series. They're then in Toronto for a 3-game series, and then they have 4 games against the Mets. Against the Braves. I mean, the Mets are kind of their own worst enemy. The Mets could play the Mets, and it could also have the same outcome. But a 4-game set against the Braves in Atlanta. Now, if the Mets were to sweep the Phillies and then go win 2 out of 3 in Toronto and then win, I don't know, like do a split with the Braves, well, all of a sudden maybe they start to feel a little bit better. But holy smokes. Can you imagine being a Mets fan? If you want the ultimate schadenfreude listen, go listen to Zach Lowe's podcast when he does Mets Corner. Goodness gracious, it is delicious. It is like having some A5 Wagyu. That's how good, that's how tasty listening to Mets people kind of melt down ended up being. That Frank the Tank guy, I haven't even looked to see what his most recent reaction video is, but I guarantee you it's amazing. I'm actually going to look. There was also the clip. I can't show it here. Maybe I will. I might not care. You know what? The hell with it. I might actually show it. Hold on. There is. Oh wait, I got a Frank the Tank. Hold on. I got his thing about the Mets. The best one that I've seen, and this actually kind of does a crossover with the World Cup, which is where we're going to end, is with the Norway fans that were in the stands when the Mets gave up a home run. So okay, hold on. We're going to do 2 things here. We got Frank the Tank having himself a huge meltdown on Wednesday night. This poor guy. I don't even know what to say about Frank the Tank. But if you want to know how Mets fans are feeling, usually you go, oh, Frank the Tank, this is, it's all performative, and there's no way Mets fans feel like this. Oh, no.
I mean, seriously? What the fuck? 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours, 6, and there could have been 9 hours. This team had 3 utter fucking misplays. You got Beatty looking like he fucking just never played the outfield. The ball going over his head, bouncing off the glove, and you got balls going all over, a butt going over Bo Bichette's head. You got fucking Simeon Kennedy in the field, a fly ball. Those are 3 hits. Those could have been errors too. They could have had 9 errors, and there's nothing going to be changed. Nothing. The manager doesn't say, no, these things happen. These things happen. And the Cubs are stealing bases in the 9th inning. I'm 10-5, and the Mets are not even fighting. They're not even fighting. They take.
This poor guy. This poor guy. Average Mets fan, though. Let's also have a moment here real quick. If you were looking for one other thing, remember, and I know that I will have egg on my face for this and how I felt about it in the moment. Bo Bichette hasn't exactly had the best season with the Mets so far either. He's got 10 home runs, 83rd in the league, 34 He's tied for 34th with 45 RBI. He's got a 688 OPS. He's hitting 254 on the season. Defensive miscues. It's not been great. The real question here, if you're Bo Bichette, is after the season you've had, do you just stick with the Mets? Because remember, he's got that opt-out. Like, he make a lot of money and opt in and continue to play for this Mets team that very much looks lost, dazed, and confused. Or he can opt out and try to test free agency, but I don't see it. I don't see that at all. Could you convince, play this one out. Could Bo Bichette help the Phillies next year? Like, if you go to free agency and you go, hey, Bo, listen, we know that we were close to signing you last year, and you took the bag from Steve Cohen. We get it. It was an insane amount of money. Here's the contract. I don't think it'll matter. And I think that JMG is also probably right. It doesn't matter because there won't be baseball. I don't have the time today to get into the most recent proposal, but yeah, I don't think we're getting baseball next year. So enjoy this season while you have it. I do not see a scenario where we're playing baseball again in 2027. Though the owners and the Players Association are so freaking far apart at this point, I just don't see it. Now, I mentioned my favorite thing that I saw had to do with the Mets and this Norwegian group of fans. If you missed it, and I'll do the scrubbing thing. I'm a Dan when he goes and puts this on like TikTok and stuff. He can use the actual video because I don't think TikTok cares, but YouTube does. So we'll get a little bit cute here. But this was a few days ago. I think this was on Wednesday. This might have actually been one of the things that led to young Frank the Tank having such a meltdown. But the Mets were tied with the Cubs. 6th inning of a game at Citi Field. And here's what happened. So the Mets give up a home run, right? For some reason, 2 outfielders jumped after it. I have no idea why. Usually you would think that you've tracked it well enough that only one of you would be in position. The ball actually falls between them, although multiple rows in the outfield. So the Cubs hit this home run, and then the camera goes from Dansby Swanson, who hit the home run, to, some Cubs fans, and then to this, to the Norwegian fans, who for some inexplicable reason are doing a conga line out in the outfield. Now again, we go back to Swanson. He goes down the cross home plate. Everything's fine. All of this would be normal except for this. Da, 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 da. You go over the crowd. Boom! Norway! The Norwegian fans are out there just having the time of their lives doing a conga line. Why? I don't know. Is that culturally Norwegian to do a conga line? I don't think so. Now, if the Norwegian fans were out there doing the row thing that we saw even their national team do at the World Cup, that's one thing. Now, why are the Norwegian fans there? Because of the World Cup, right? Okay, so we all know that. And we will end today's show also on the World Cup because the U.S. men's national team will officially play Bosnia-Herzegovina on Wednesday in a round of 32 game. That is a knockout stage. So from this point on, you win, you're through. You lose, you go home. Should the U.S. beat Bosnia-Herzegovina? Yes. Will they beat Bosnia-Herzegovina? I don't know. The game against Turkey was not ideal. Now, mind you, Mauricio Pochettino chose to play a lot of backups, including in net. Did not start Christian Pulisic, who has been nursing this calf injury since the first half of the first game of the World Cup. He did make some late substitutions. He did put Pulisic in this game. He put Serginho Dest in this game. And it did feel like they were going to have a big breakthrough. And again, I mentioned this at the top of the show. The U.S. goes up like 2 minutes in. Austin Trusty, former member of the Philadelphia Union, along with Mark McKenzie and Brendan Aronson, both of whom also played in this game. So that's got to give you a little bit of pride if you're a Philadelphia Union fan, that 3 of your guys, of the past, they don't play for the team anymore, but 3 of the guys that your organization helped to develop represented the U.S. in this final game of the World Cup group stage. He gives them a lead. They give up 2 goals. There's one that gets pulled back on an offside for the U.S. that it was offside. They managed to tie this game up, and then a defensive lapse on the far post. Not a great goal to give up. Pulisic gets nutmegged before the cross comes to the other side of the field. And then eventually, I don't actually know how the player did the touch on it, but he kind of came down on the ball. It did go through the legs of the netminder, of the goaltender, to the other side of the net where it was deposited in the back. So Turkey ends up winning 3-2. People were upset after the game. That is what it is. Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Thierry Henry, who've both been very interesting to watch in this World Cup, they both essentially said, yeah, you were just trying to get your backups minutes. You were trying to get some of these guys, even like Dest and Pulisic, some minutes in this game so that they don't miss, they're not playing, or they're not playing for like, a week and a half, 2 weeks or whatever it would have been. And in the case of Pulisic, it would have been almost 3 weeks between the first game and then the knockout stage. You understand why they made the decision they did. But all of this leads to a little bit of like maybe good news that finally comes out around Mauricio Pochettino and this U.S. men's national team, which is that apparently the U.S. men's national team has made an offer to Mauricio Pochettino to extend his contract with the team, with the host nation, with the United States of America through 2030. Now, reportedly, according to The Athletic, this offer was made to Pochettino before this World Cup even started. They were already interested enough in what he had done to kind of build out this team, build out the culture of the U.S. squad. And so they want to have Pochettino back. But they agreed, and his camp apparently agreed, they would not have further discussions about it or further negotiations until after the World Cup. Now, I have an interesting theory here, right? If you're Pochettino, should you have any interest in re-upping with this team through 2030? No. Probably not. If you're able to get this U.S. team to, let's say, the semifinal, then maybe. I still think that Pochettino would rather manage club teams for the next few years. It's not quite the same as when you see an NBA coach lead the U.S. team at the Olympics, right? It's not the same thing as we saw recently with NHL coaches leading national teams at the Olympics. It's not the same thing. If you're the U.S. men's national team coach, the expectation is that you are spending every year between World Cup cycles scouting, developing, and running that U.S. Soccer Federation team, right? And working with the U.S. Soccer Federation to identify that next wave of players. And then when there are friendlies throughout the year, you're running those. When Gold Cup happens and other competitions are happening, you're expected to run those. I do not see the U.S. kind of saying, all right, Poch, like, you want to come back for 2030? Like, go take 2 years to go manage a club team in 27 and 28. We'll see you in 2029 and 2030 for the World Cup. Like, that won't happen. Pochettino is still in enough of a spot and has had enough success with top teams in Europe that I would fully expect him to want to go back. We saw the rumor before the World Cup started that apparently there was contact between his camp and AC Milan. If a top-tier EPL team or a top-tier La Liga team or a top-tier Bundesliga team comes to you and says, run our squad, I think Pochettino would jump at it. And you can't blame him, because ultimately your goal as a manager, in most cases, is to try to win, let's say, a Champions League, to win La Liga, to win the EPL. If Pochettino is somehow able to lead this U.S. team to a semifinal, right? If somehow, right? You're going to have to beat at least one or two very, very good teams along the way to get there. If he's able to do that, does that pique his interest? All right, it took the better part of a year and a half, 2 years, to change the culture within this team, to build this team in his image. Does he believe that there's a way to take that to the next level? Or at the end of this World Cup, does he feel like, I got the most I can out of these guys, and I don't see that next wave of players coming into this U.S. program that I could lift them to another level? We'll see. I have no idea. I do think it's interesting, though, that instead of getting that negative news like we did right before the World Cup, oh, he's talking to AC Milan. Now this thing comes out that, oh, there may be a little bit of openness on both sides to working something out for the next 4 years. We will see. I'll tell you what else we'll see. We'll see what happens with your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers at the NHL Draft tonight. I have no idea which way it's going to go. I would highly, highly, highly recommend that if you do not have plans tonight you go out of your way to find the Snow the Goalie YouTube channel, Facebook channel, X channel, whatever, and go watch Ant and Bundy and intern Andrew and video guy Amadeo, the whole squad, as they bring on an incredible lineup. Now, I saw Nick Abe tagged me in a thing here, and I saw this before the show. I don't know enough about it yet to like fully dive into it, and I don't have the context around it. CJGJ, who I was always a big supporter of as an Eagle, apparently said, Saquon, I hope you're happy. You see the band's getting broken up, which seems to imply that he thinks Saquon Barkley is behind maybe the breakdown of the relationship between Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown and the organization. So, I don't know. We might get back to that on Monday. But a lot going on. I wish all of you the best. I hope you have a fantastic Friday and wonderful weekend. Don't forget, I will be back in some way, shape, or form on Monday. It might be pre-recorded. It might be live from Florida. I don't know yet. But there will be an episode of this show on Monday where we'll react to whoever the Flyers end up drafting. Maybe the Flyers make a move. Maybe it happens. Maybe there's a trade. I don't know. But until Monday, this has been the Russ Joy Show. And I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. I hope you have a great day. Don't forget, clips of the show are available on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram. And you can find the show in the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Go watch the Snow the Goalie draft show tonight starting at 6:45 on the Snow the Goalie channels. And until Monday, this has been the Russ Joy Show. I've been Russ Joy. You knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to all of you soon here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye now.